something just shifted in the Steve Harvey story, and it's darker than anyone expected. Because now, it looks like his own biological children are stepping forward, and what they're implying is hard to ignore. One voice even admits he didn't truly have his father in his life until he was 16. For weeks, headlines focused on rumors surrounding Marjorie Harvey, but insiders say that wasn't even the real issue. Now, there are claims she may have pushed Steve into an impossible choice, her or his own kids. And if what's being hinted at is true, this entire story just changed forever.
When me and Marjorie first got together, we brought all the kids together, all 7 of them. And all the girls went bowling and came back and decided they didn't want us to get married and said they don't think it's right.
Every time it seems like the noise around Steve Harvey is finally fading, something else surfaces, and this time, it feels heavier. Because what's coming out now isn't just random gossip. It looks like a pattern. A timeline that insiders say has been building for years. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to ignore. According to people close to the situation, this isn't just about money, inheritance, or surface-level tension. Those things might exist, but they're not the core. The real issue, insiders claim, is emotional, long-term, personal. There are growing claims that Steve's biological children spent years feeling pushed to the side, watching him pour energy, attention, and affection into Marjorie Harvey and her children instead. And that contrast? It didn't go unnoticed. For a long time, the public framed it as admirable, Steve stepping up, embracing Marjorie's kids as his own. But now, it looks like there may have been another side to that story. Because behind the scenes, it's being suggested that his own children felt like they weren't just second, but almost invisible. And if that's true, it explains the tension that's been quietly building inside this blended family. But it doesn't stop there. Because insiders hint that what happened wasn't just distance, it was uneven treatment. And in some cases, the ones who were simply left out may have had it easier than the ones who stayed close. That's where things start to shift. Before Marjorie, Steve had already been through 2 marriages, both described as unstable. His first wife, Marcia Harvey, is the mother of his eldest children, Brandy Harvey, Carly Harvey, and Broderick Harvey Jr. And even during that time, it's being suggested that his presence as a father was already inconsistent. Then came his second marriage to Mary. Insiders say she played a major role in helping him build his career from the ground up, investing heavily when things were still uncertain. But while that foundation was being built, something else was quietly unfolding in the background. Because during one of his performances, he noticed Marjorie in the crowd. And from that moment, everything started to change. What followed, according to accounts, was a series of decisions, personal and professional, that would eventually reshape not just his career, but his entire family dynamic.
I had my dad full-time into my life until I was 16.
And this is where the story takes a darker turn. Because as painful as abandonment sounds, insiders are now suggesting something even more disturbing, that being ignored may not have been the worst outcome. Because one child wasn't ignored. Winton Harvey stayed close. And according to what's now being implied, that closeness came at a cost. There are claims, serious ones, that his experience inside the household looked very different from the others. While some children were left on the outside, Winton was allegedly caught in the middle of something far more complicated. And the reasoning behind it? That's where it gets uncomfortable. It looks like, according to his own perspective, he may have believed he was being used as a way to settle unresolved tension between his parents. Specifically, during the fallout between Mary Lee Harvey and Steve. Because insiders describe that divorce as volatile, emotionally charged, and far from clean. And in situations like that, lines can blur. Now, to be clear, these are allegations. But they've been repeated enough that people are starting to connect dots. Mary has suggested that during that period, Winton may have been subjected to harsh treatment inside the home. And timing matters. Because these claims appear to line up with the moment Marjorie Harvey entered the picture more seriously. No direct blame is being placed on her for what allegedly happened. But some believe her presence may have intensified an already fragile situation. Almost like the dynamic inside the house began to shift, and not everyone adjusted safely. Then things escalate. There are reports that at one point, the situation became serious enough for authorities to step in. Allegedly, law enforcement documented visible injuries, bruising, marks enough to raise concern. One account even suggests that the physical impact was severe enough to affect basic movement afterward. Again, these are claims. But the fact that they exist at all changes the tone of the story. Because now, this isn't just about emotional distance. It's about what may have been happening behind closed doors. And while that situation was eventually investigated and dropped, the shadow it leaves behind is hard to ignore. So when people say the children who were just ignored might have had it easier, it starts to make a disturbing kind of sense. But the tension doesn't stop there. Because as time moved forward, another pattern began to form, one that's harder to explain away. According to Brandy Harvey and Carly Harvey, there was an unspoken understanding inside the household that Marjorie Harvey needed to be the center, the priority. And whether that was directly stated or simply felt, the outcome looked the same. Because from the outside, it began to appear like Steve didn't just embrace her children, he elevated them. Above everything else. He legally adopted all 3 of them, gave them his last name, publicly positioned them as part of his identity. Now, for younger kids, that kind of gesture might feel natural. But in this case, 2 of those children, Morgan Harvey and Jason Harvey, were already adults. So people started asking questions. Why now? Why this level of urgency to redefine family lines? Some believe it was about opportunity. That carrying the Harvey name opened doors, socially, professionally, publicly. A reset of identity. A repositioning. And Steve didn't just sign papers. He showed it. Through attention. Through visibility. Through presence. Especially when it came to Lori Harvey. Because insiders say she received a level of attention that stood out, even within the household. Private moments. Public appearances. Consistent support. It created a contrast that was impossible to ignore. On one side, distance, absence, unresolved pain. On the other, access, attention, and opportunity. And over time, that contrast didn't just sit quietly. It grew. Into resentment. Into confusion. Into questions that no one seemed ready to answer publicly. Because when a family starts to feel divided like that, it's rarely just about one decision. It's about everything that led up to it. And everything that followed.
One of our annual father-daughter dates to my favorite Japanese restaurant. And you just started talking to me about guys, and you just told me that you always supported me and you'd always be there for me no matter what.
And this is where everything stops feeling like just drama and starts feeling personal. Because what insiders are describing isn't just favoritism, it's division. A quiet split inside the family that never fully healed. From the outside, it may have looked like Steve Harvey was simply doing the right thing, embracing Marjorie Harvey's children, giving them stability, giving them his name. And some still argue that he did. But behind that image, there are claims that the emotional balance inside the household never felt equal. That there was a clear difference, not always spoken, but always felt. Because when one side of a blended family seems to rise faster, more attention, more visibility, more presence, it doesn't just go unnoticed. It lingers. And over time, it turns into something heavier. There are growing suggestions that tension built quietly between the siblings. Not loud arguments, but a kind of underlying resentment. Especially as Lori Harvey's public profile exploded, her name constantly in headlines, her personal life under a spotlight that seemed to follow her everywhere. And while the world watched her rise, others in the family were still processing what they felt they had lost. That contrast? It created pressure. Not just emotionally, but publicly. Because now every move, every appearance, every success became a reminder of that imbalance. And then there's the part that shifts everything. Because it looks like, at one point, this wasn't just silent tension. There are claims that Steve's daughters, Brandy Harvey and Carly Harvey, actually tried to intervene before it all became permanent. That they spoke up. That they warned him. That they asked him not to move forward with marrying Marjorie. Think about that. Before the marriage, before the blended family dynamic, before everything became public, there were already concerns inside the house. Already hesitation. Already fear about what this could turn into. And if that's true, then this wasn't something that appeared out of nowhere. It was something they saw coming.
When me and Marjorie first got together, we brought all the kids together, all 7 of them. And all the girls went bowling and came back and decided they didn't want us to get married and said they don't think it's the right thing to do.
And this is the part that leaves a mark. Because when those concerns were raised, when it looks like the warnings were actually voiced, they didn't change anything. According to what's being suggested, Steve Harvey didn't take that pushback seriously. Not because he didn't hear it, but because, in that moment, he didn't see it as something that should influence his decision. There's an implication that the power dynamic inside the family played a role. That being the provider, the one funding lifestyles, education, stability, shifted the weight of whose voice mattered. And in that environment, it seems like the opinions coming from his own daughters didn't carry enough influence to stop what was already in motion. So the decision was made anyway. And from that point forward, everything that followed, every tension, every divide, every unresolved feeling started to take shape around that choice. Because when people feel unheard at a moment that important, they don't just forget it. It stays. It changes how they see you. And over time, it can redefine the entire relationship. Now, looking back, insiders suggest that moment may have been a turning point. The point where the distance stopped being temporary and became permanent. Because once a line like that is crossed, it doesn't just affect the present. It echoes into everything that comes after.
Y'all ain't got a relationship, a good job, a career. I'm paying for colleges and I don't know how I'm listening to y'all making some decisions. Y'all ain't got one boyfriend that done worked thus far. So I don't know how the hell you finna tell me how to live. My sons was over there cool with.
And now everything feels different. Because if even a fraction of these claims hold weight, then this was never just about one decision. It was a chain reaction. A series of choices that may have quietly reshaped an entire family. Some believe Steve Harvey is the one who has to answer for it. Others are pointing at Marjorie Harvey, questioning her role behind the scenes. But maybe the truth sits somewhere in between. Either way, one thing is clear. This isn't over.